A lot can change in a month. On December 12th, 1 month ago, the Nets, who are currently 16 and 22, were an above 500 team. The Lakers, who are currently teetering at the 10th spot, were the sixth seed with three more wins than the team in seventh.
Wow.
The Pistons had one fewer win than they currently do. And the Jazz, the Utah Jazz, were 7 and 16 at that time. Cleaning the Glass had the Jazz as the 26th best offense and 27th best defense.
Wow.
A negative 8.8 net rating.
Wow.
And based on their play to that point, Cleaning the Glass expected them to win around 19 games over an 82 game season. 1 month later, the Utah Jazz are 19 and 20, a half game behind. Well, actually, they're actually kind of tied with the Lakers now. I wrote this like 2 nights ago, but now after the Lakers lost, as I mentioned, that game on Saturday is going to decide who's in the 10th spot. They're a full game up on the Warriors. Like, what happened to this team? Well, over the last month, the Jazz have gone 12 and 4. They are 13th in offense, 12th in defense over that time span.
4 is wild, man. 12 and 4 is crazy.
So it is. Those 12 wins are tied with the Boston Celtics for most wins over the past month. And if for some reason 12 and 4 doesn't sound that impressive, I looked at last season just for context. Only 11 of the 30 teams had a 16-game stretch as good as what the Jazz have done over the last month. This Jazz team has gone from being a true cellar dweller, hanging out there, down there with the likes of the Zards and the Hornets and the Spurs and the Pistons, to having one of the best months of basketball a team has had so far this season. And if you're wondering whether the schedule gods showed them favor over the last month, no, they didn't. Just in the last week, they beat Philly on the road, Milwaukee on the road, and Denver at home. There's 12 wins, also included wins against Dallas, Miami, and New York. Their 4 losses were at Sacramento, at Cleveland, at New Orleans, and at Boston. That's it.
Ooh.
4 road losses to playoff teams.
Wow.
And if you're still trying to poke holes in this, wondering, well, maybe they got some shooting luck. No, it was the opposite. Over the last month, Jazz opponents shot 37.9% from 3, which was the 11th highest percentage in the league. And they shot 45.3% from the corners, which was the 6th highest percentage in the league. If anything, the Jazz were a little unlucky shooting the ball. They only hit 35.9% of their own corner threes, which was the 5th worst percentage over that month time span. This team has just been really good. Now, why have they been good? Well, there's a couple reasons. The obvious one is health. In those first 26 games, Markkanen and Kessler missed a combined 15 games. And importantly, they missed those games during different stretches, which means the Jazz weren't really able to settle into any kind of normal rotation. Now, with everyone healthy, the Jazz have finally been able to get into a rhythm with their rotations. And interestingly, what they found works is much different than what they thought would work entering the season. The starting lineup on opening night was Talen Horton-Tucker, Walker Kessler, Jordan Clarkson, John Collins, and Lauri Markkanen. That lineup ended up playing 174 possessions together. They were a minus 21.4 net rating in those possessions.
Oh, no.
Oh, no is right. Fast forward to today, the Jazz are rolling out Chris Dunn, Colin Sexton, Lauri Markkanen, Simone Fontecchio. I always have to pause. I really am trying to get that right. I even wrote it out phonetically for myself.
It's a great name. It's a great name.
It is. And John Collins. In 182 possessions, that new starting lineup has a plus 2.1 net rating per Cleaning the Glass. Now, that isn't some overwhelming number, but when your previous starters, who were a minus 21.4, it's pretty good. And that lineup has been putting up those improved numbers over this recent stretch, which, again, included games against Boston, Milwaukee, and Denver. Andy Larson wrote a great article in the Salt Lake Tribune detailing why this starting lineup, which, by the way, is the 16th different one for the Jazz this season, has finally led them to a place that makes sense. Chris Dunn in the role of the distributor, Sexton as the off-ball scorer who has more space because of Fontecchio and Collins being there, and then Markkanen, of course, as the lead guy who, in addition to his always efficient scoring, is currently at career-high levels with offensive rebound percentage and block percentage. That new starting lineup has allowed the all-bench unit to make more sense as well. Rookie Keontae George, Jordan Clarkson, Ochai Agbaji, Kelly Olynyk, and Walker Kessler are a plus 22 net rating in 90
Wow.
possessions, only 90 possessions so far per Cleaning the Glass. And one thing Andy brought up in his article was how coach Will Hardy has talked about using Kessler differently in terms of spacing, starting him closer to the 3-point line instead of near the paint. And Jackson Frank on Twitter clipped a play from that Nuggets game showing how this works. It was a play where Kessler starts just inside the 3-point line in the corner. And while the movement of all the other 4 Jazz players keeps the Nuggets occupied, Kessler eventually cuts to the rim where he catches an easy lob from Markkanen for the dunk. I know one thing I have been guilty of is thinking that good spacing is just too difficult with a non-shooting big in the current NBA, which is just wrong. It can be difficult, but it's also not impossible either. And Will Hardy deserves a lot of credit for constructing this offense in a way where all these random pieces are being optimized, because I can't really say that I just love this Jazz roster, Andrew. I'm not blown away when I read this list of names to myself. And so part of me does wonder, as good as this month has been, how much further up the standings can they really go? But that's where it starts to get interesting, because while everyone has been focused on the Jazz as sellers at this deadline, talking about Markkanen or John Collins or Kelly Olynyk, why wouldn't they be buyers? This is the same team that engaged with the Blazers about Damian Lillard, the same team that was trying to get involved in the Drew Holiday sweepstakes, the team that made the John Collins trade, and the team who, if the Thunder didn't exist, we'd be talking about how much trade ammo they have. At least 15 total first-round picks, including their own, 5 that are completely unprotected. They got lightly protected ones. They got swaps. They have movable contracts. Why wouldn't the Jazz be buyers? And that should terrify these old-ass teams at the bottom of the play-in range. Because a month ago, the Warriors, Lakers, and Suns thought they'd really only need to fend off one other team to at least make the play-in, when it looked like all of San Antonio, Portland, Memphis, and Utah wouldn't be competitive. Well, now Utah, even without some big deadline deal, is going to be a huge problem. This team, assuming decent health, is going to make the play-in. Official slam and jam prediction, Andrew.
Whoa.
I don't think they're world beaters by any means. And I'd love to see them make some kind of upgrade at the deadline. But after a turbulent start to the season, they have now been in a solid groove for a month, which is so much more that you can say about these other goofy old teams around them. So, yeah, I've kind of been waiting, but we are now at the month point. Like, they've been doing this for a month now, 12-4. So I feel like I have to start to change my priors, which, granted, I think it was deserved after you start off the season 7-19, but they followed that up with this 12-4 month, beating some really good teams. Now with everyone healthy, I think I'm starting to buy the Jazz. I'm buying in.
So official Slam and Jam prediction. Who's out then? If the Jazz are in, who's
You're asking
out?
me to make a second prediction, Andrew. I only do one prediction
It's attached
per
to the first
show.
one. It's attached to the first one.
Andrew, it's none of my business, okay? Whoever wants to drop out, that's their call, okay?
So
I mean, it could be
2 of Phoenix, Houston, Lakers, Jazz, Warriors are going to miss.
Correct.
2.
Yes, 2 of them.
Because I think like Dallas is good enough. Pelicans have been good enough. Everybody else is good enough. Like 2 of those teams, 2 of Dallas, or not Dallas, Phoenix, Houston, LA, Utah, Golden State.
Warriors,
That's pretty wild. Like those are, I mean, obviously,
It is, and
if Utah didn't make it. I don't think their fan base would be like outrageously disappointed. If any of those other missed, it would be like such a big disappointment for any of those fan bases.
Well, and I know what some people will say is, well, if they're around the play-in by the end of the season, as a reminder, their pick is going to OKC, but it's top 10 protected. So wouldn't they kind of do a, Dallas Mavs move from last year where they try to make sure they're in the 10 spot? But you and I have talked about, like, if you're the Jazz, wouldn't you rather that pick convey this year in what everyone is seeing as a down draft, and then getting your own pick next year in the 25 draft? Now, they expect to be better than the 10th pick next year, but it makes it easier. Like, you don't have to worry as much. Like, you can have it either way. You're going to having your first round pick in a much better draft. So I don't really buy that as much. I did at the beginning of the season, but now I'm at the point where I think the Jazz are just going to continue to play well and might even be buyers, as they kind of suggested in the summer.
Yeah, they could go get one of those net swings.